She was pregnant, starving, and just hours away from being sold for slaughter. No one looked at her twice until one woman walked into that auction yard and did something no one expected. But what happened next when the mare stepped off that trailer is going to break your heart in the best possible way. Sometimes when all hope is lost, a single act of kindness can change everything. The smell hit Emily before she even stepped out of her truck's wet, fear, rust, and something worse. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Part of her wanted to drive away. She knew what she'd see inside that place. She knew it would hurt. But she came anyway. The sign above the gates read Northern Range Livestock Auction. Every week, dozens of horses passed through, most bound for slaughterhouses. In Mexico or Canada, a few were saved, but not many. She got out, boots crunching on gravel, pulling her denim jacket tight against the wind. She wasn't there to watch, she was there to act. The holding pens groaned under the weight of forgotten souls, horses with tangled manes and downcast eyes, mares who'd known better days, and geldings whose trust had long since burned out. And then she saw her, in the farthest corner, pressed against splintered boards, stood a pale gray Mustang Mare. Her coat had once been silver, now streaked with dirt and blood. Her sides were sunken, but her belly large, tight, heavy with life gave her away. She was pregnant and close. Emily's heart lurched. A worker noticed her staring. "That one. She's due any minute now," he said. Meat buyers already flagged her. "Won't bring much, but still, who brought her?" And guy from Dry Creek said she came from a failed training program. Wild as they come, didn't want to feed her through the winter. Emily stepped closer to the gate. The mare's head turned slightly, just enough to show one deep, dark eye. That was all it took. Emily whispered, "You're not done, not yet." Within minutes, she was inside the office, flipping through her credentials and filling out the rescue release form. She'd only planned to observe, maybe pull one or two for transport, but this was different. She didn't know why, but she knew she had to save her. Outside, the auction continued, the rhythmic shout of numbers echoing through the lot. The mare never moved. She stood like a statue, braced against the world. An hour later, with the paperwork finalized, Emily returned to the pen with a halter and the softest rope she had. The mare watched her approach. Emily didn't rush. She spoke softly, like a lullaby. "You're safe now, I promise." To her surprise, the mare didn't bolt. She flinched, yes, but she didn't rear. She didn't bite. She just stood, as if waiting for someone to finally mean it. Emily named her Luna for her pale coat and quiet, watchful strength. The trailer ride was silent. Luna wobbled once, but remained steady. She didn't lie down. She didn't panic. She just looked forward, eyes unblinking. Back at the sanctuary, dusk had fallen. The sky was lavender and rose as Emily opened the trailer gate. Luna stepped down with surprising grace, her hooves touching soft earth for what felt like the first time in months. She scanned the open paddock, no walls, no bars, just wind, grass, and stars overhead. She turned back to Emily, and for a moment, their eyes locked. That was when Emily felt it. This was no ordinary rescue. Luna wasn't just there to be saved. She had something left to give, and soon the whole world would understand why. The night air was colder than Emily expected. She leaned against the wooden fence, arms folded over her jacket. Watching the soft rise and fall of Luna's sides, the mare stood still in the moonlit paddock, her silver coat catching the pale glow like a mirror. She hadn't lain down once since arriving. Emily knew the signs: restlessness, tension in the flanks, the way Luna occasionally glanced back at her swollen belly. The foal was coming soon. She sighed and glanced at the stable just behind her. It was warm, bedded in fresh straw, safe and waiting. But Luna hadn't stepped inside. She stood in the open, head high, watching the sky like she was waiting for permission from the stars. "She's wild," Emily whispered to herself. "She still needs the sky." She walked slowly to the edge of the fence and opened the gate wider, just in case Luna changed her mind. Then she placed a bucket of warm mash and a clean tub of water nearby. "You don't have to trust me," she said gently. "Just stay alive." Luna didn't respond, but she didn't bolt either. That was progress. Emily walked back to the house but didn't go inside. She sat on the porch with a wool blanket over her knees and a flashlight in her hand, watching, just in case. Hours passed. The moon climbed higher. Coyotes howled in the far hills, but Luna didn't flinch. She paced once slowly, then stopped and snorted. Her breath whitened the cold air. Then a shift. Emily saw her lower her head and paw at the earth. Her muscles rippled under her silver coat. Her tail flicked high. It was starting. Emily was on her feet instantly, walking, then jogging to the paddock. She kept her distance, crouching outside the fence, watching with bated breath. Luna lowered herself to the ground carefully, like she had done this before, or like her body simply knew what to do. Even if her heart didn't, Emily whispered a prayer. Please let it go. Smoothly, please. Minutes passed like hours. Luna trembled, her body tight with effort. A soft whimper escaped her throat, almost a cry, almost a song. The wind stilled. Then, just after midnight, beneath a full Nevada moon, a small, wet form slid gently into the grass. A foal. Emily clutched the fence post, heart pounding. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Luna turned, nuzzled the tiny body, and began licking softly, clearing the afterbirth. The foal's legs kicked weakly, then stilled. Another few minutes passed before it began to lift its head. A filly, Emily guessed, though she confirmed it later. Her coat was still damp but unmistakably light gray, almost white, just like her mother's. And there, right in the center of her forehead, a sharp white blaze in the shape of a star. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Welcome to the world, she whispered. You made it. She named her right then and there, Star. Luna stood slowly, trembling but proud, and nudged Star upright. The foal stumbled, collapsed, and tried again until she found her legs. She wobbled to her mother's side and began to nurse. Emily stayed there for another hour, frozen in place, unable to look away. It wasn't just a birth, it was a miracle. From a slaughter pen to this, from death row to moonlight, Luna had carried that baby through trauma, transport, fear, and starvation, and still, she gave her life. Emily felt something shift inside her, a renewal of belief in something bigger. And as she finally stood to return to the house, she looked back one last time. Luna stood tall again, head raised to the sky, and Star curled beneath her side. Safe, warm, and alive. Emily whispered, You're not just survivors anymore. You're a family. The morning sun rose slowly over the Nevada hills, but Emily was already awake. She stood barefoot on the wooden porch with a mug of coffee in her hands, her eyes fixed on the paddock. Luna and Star were resting together in the golden light, a living painting. Star curled up close to her mother's side, twitching slightly. In her sleep, Luna stood tall, silent, as if guarding her from every shadow. Emily had seen 100 foalings in her life, but nothing like this. She pulled out her phone and snapped a photo, not to share, just to remember. But then something pulled at her. The world needed this, not just the happy ending, but the beginning, the truth of where Luna had come from, of how close she'd come to being lost, of what she still carried in her body and bones. Emily uploaded the photo with the caption, From slaughter to sanctuary. Luna gave birth to a miracle last night, and then she logged off. By noon, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing shares, comments, and messages from animal lovers across the country. The story was spreading, but so were the critics. Someone posted an old video from the auction yard showing Luna being loaded into the trailer, terrified and trembling. Another account dug up the paperwork. Luna had been rounded up from federal lands, deemed unadoptable, and labeled dangerous after failing a training program. Then came the comments, that horse should have been euthanized, wasted resources. You can't save them all. The money should go to domestic horses. And just another bleeding heart story with no long-term plan. Emily clenched her jaw. As she read, she had seen it before. People who feared what they didn't understand. People who thought a wild animal was only worth something if it could be written, branded, or broken. She walked out to the paddock, her boots silent in the soft dirt. Luna lifted her head at the sound, but didn't move. Star looked up too, wobbled to her feet, and gave the tiniest nicker. Emily smiled, her eyes stinging. You're worth it, she whispered. Both of you. That evening, a truck pulled into the sanctuary's gravel drive. Emily recognized him instantly. Bill Harper from the local livestock board. He got out, clipboard in hand. "Emily," he said with a nod. "Let me guess." She replied, "Someone reported a wild Mustang foaling on private land." He said, "3 people," he added, "and a federal officer emailed me personally." Emily folded her arms. "She's not on federal land anymore. She's under my care. I filed the transfer paperwork. She's also listed as high risk," he added. "Behavioral history, injury, aggression. She hasn't shown a single sign of aggression since I brought her here," Emily said. Bill's eyes glanced at the paddock. Luna stood still, watching. Him, her golden mane catching the light. Star hid shyly behind her. "She looks calm now," he admitted. "She's calm because she's safe." He tapped the clipboard. "I'm not here to take her, just to document. But I've got to file a report, and I need access to her pen." Emily hesitated, then nodded. "I'll walk with you." They approached slowly. Luna's ears twitched, but she didn't back up. Bill stopped a few feet from the gate. "She's gorgeous," he murmured. "She almost died in a kill pen," Emily said quietly. "And last night, she gave the world this." Star peeked out again, her soft gray coat still dusted with hay. Bill knelt carefully. "She's perfect." For a long moment, no one said anything. Then Bill stood. "Look, I'll note the visit. I'll mark her as under protected sanctuary care. That'll keep the BLM off your back for now. But if anything changes, it won't." Emily said, "She's not going anywhere." He nodded once, then turned and left. That night, Emily sat beside the paddock as the stars returned to the sky. Luna dozed, and Star nestled against her. The world might not believe in miracles, but she'd seen one with her own eyes, and she would fight to protect it. It started with hoof beats. 1. Emily was in the barn stacking feed when the sound made her pause. It wasn't Luna. Her steps were quiet and deliberate. It was different, heavier, angrier. She rushed outside, heart thudding, just as a tall man on horseback approached the main gate. The sun glared off the metal buckles on his saddle. He wore a stiff-brimmed hat, mirrored sunglasses, and a look that screamed control. Emily didn't need to ask. She already knew. Derek Sloan, a former BLM contractor, is known for leading roundups across the Southwest. Efficient, ruthless, and proud of it. He didn't dismount. "You, Emily Grace," he barked. She kept her stance firm. "Yes, and it is private land. Not here to trespass," he said, though he made no move to turn away. "I heard you took in a gray Mustang. Pregnant, from the Dry Creek roundup." Emily didn't respond. Derek clicked his tongue and adjusted his gloves. That horse was branded dangerous and untrainable. She broke a man's collarbone in Fallon last spring. She was terrified and mishandled, and Emily shot back. "She's a threat," he snapped. "To you. To others. You think she's gentle because she gave birth. Don't fool yourself. These wild ones, they don't change." Emily's fists clenched. "She's not yours. She's not under federal control anymore. She's mine, and she's with her foal." Peacefully, Derek finally dismounted, dust kicking up around his boots. "You don't know what you're dealing with." "I know exactly what I'm dealing with. A mother, a survivor, and the best damn Mustang I've ever met." He stepped closer, too close. "Listen," he said in a low voice. "I don't care what kind of show you're running here. You post your little miracle story and get some sympathy clicks. But when that mare snaps, and she will, I hope you're ready to watch that foal lose her mother." Emily's blood ran cold. "I want you off my property," she said, her voice shaking but strong now. He didn't move for a long moment. Then he turned, spat in the dirt, and mounted again. "You'll regret it," he said before galloping off without another word. That night, Luna wouldn't go near the barn. She paced the paddock, muscles taut, ears twitching at every sound. Star tried to stay close, but even she seemed confused by her mother's sudden anxiety. Emily sat outside for hours, whispering, trying to calm her, but something had shifted. Luna remembered him, and he remembered her. The next morning, Tanya, a friend and fellow volunteer, arrived with groceries and concern in her eyes. "I saw the comments," she said, setting down a box. "Someone posted Luna's BLM file, a full behavioral report and photos from the roundup." Emily sighed. "Exhausted, I know, and Sloan showed up here yesterday." Tanya froze. You're kidding. Nope. I said I'd regret saving her, that she'd turn. Tanya looked out at the paddock where Luna was grazing quietly, her foal wobbling happily nearby. She doesn't look dangerous. She looks like a mother trying to forget hell. Tanya placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. We believe in her. That matters. But Emily knew it wasn't enough. The sanctuary was under a spotlight now, and Luna's past was chasing her. That evening, Emily opened her laptop and wrote a post. Yes, Luna once reared. Yes, she once panicked in a holding pen. But what would you do if helicopters chased you from your land, strangers roped you to the ground, and the only home you'd ever known vanished? She's not broken. She's recovering. And she's teaching me more about strength than any human ever has. Within hours, the post went viral again, but this time something had changed. People began sharing photos of their own rescued Mustangs. Others posted messages of support. A former trainer even came forward with his regret for how Luna had been handled. The tide was turning, and as Emily stood by the fence that night, watching Luna nuzzle her foal beneath a sky full of stars, she whispered, "You're not alone anymore. And I don't care what they say, you're staying right here." The storm came. Without warning, dark clouds rolled over the Nevada hills like a rising tide. Winds kicked up dust and dry leaves. The horses in the lower pasture grew restless. Pacing along the fence line, Emily had been repairing a shelter roof when the temperature dropped sharply. She checked her phone. No rain in the forecast, but the sky said otherwise. She rushed to the barn, checking each stall and securing the gates. Luna and Star were in the front paddock, the one closest to the house, but farthest from the old irrigation ditch, a dry, sunken trench that hadn't held water in years. She didn't think twice about it. Why would she? It happened fast. A single clap of thunder, a flash of lightning. Then the sound Emily hadn't heard in over a decade, running water. She froze. Impossible. The irrigation ditch had been bone dry for years. But as she stepped out and looked down the hill, her stomach dropped. The flash flood was real. Somewhere upstream, a dam had broken, or maybe the buildup of rainfall had finally overflowed. Whatever the cause, a wall of muddy water was now roaring through the trench and headed straight toward the sanctuary. Fence and Star was near it. Luna neighed sharply, her body stiff. She bolted toward the paddock edge, whinnying louder, warning. Emily ran. "Star," she screamed. The foal had wandered closer to the ditch, drawn by curiosity or the smell of wet earth. She stood frozen at the edge, hooves trembling. The fence between them and the trench wasn't built for floods. If it gave way, the water would sweep her. Luna galloped at full speed. Emily saw it all unfold like a movie. Luna didn't wait. She didn't pause. She charged. The fence, hooves slamming into the post like thunder. It cracked, splintered, and gave. She was through. Star let out a shriek, like a whinny, but Luna was already there, her body between the foal and the rising flood. She nudged Star hard, forcing her back. The foal resisted and panicked, but Luna didn't back down. She shoved and she pressed until Star stumbled away from the trench just as the first surge of muddy water slammed into the lower edge of the field. Emily reached them seconds later, soaked and breathless. The flood was rising fast. Without thinking, she grabbed the foal's collar and began leading her toward the barn. Luna followed, mud caking her legs, breath heaving, but eyes locked on Star. They reached the barn just as the water licked the back fence. Emily slammed the door shut and collapsed to her knees. Heart racing, Luna stood over her, full, trembling, but unbroken. The story spread faster than the storm. Tanya had caught the moment on her phone from the porch: the charge, the broken fence, the rescue. By morning, it had over 1 million views. Mustang Mare risks her life to save her baby from a flash flood. Wild horses were once labeled dangerous, but they protect their foals with unbelievable bravery. People cried, people rallied, and most importantly, people changed their minds. 2 days later, a letter arrived, official BLM letterhead. Emily opened it with shaking hands. Following documentation and public interest surrounding the mare known as Luna, and under the protection clause for legacy Mustangs, permanent sanctuary status has been approved. No further action will be taken. She is yours forever. Emily dropped the letter and covered her mouth. She looked out the window at Luna and Star grazing peacefully in the sun. She did it. She whispered. Not just the rescue, not just the survival, she changed everything. The days that followed felt like a dream. The flash flood had dried as quickly as it came, leaving behind muddy tracks and broken fences. But what remained was peace. Luna had been quiet, not skittish, not nervous, just calm, centered. Emily watched her from the porch each morning as the sun rose. The mare stood beside her foal, grazing softly, the breeze dancing through her golden mane. Star trotted and played more each day. Her wobbly legs turned stronger, her eyes curious and full of life. Emily had stopped calling her a rescue. She was just hers now. The sanctuary was changing, too. Donations poured in, enough to rebuild the paddocks, upgrade the shelters, and even add a new training corral, not for breaking horses. Never that, but for trust building. Gentle hands, open space, and time. People started visiting just to see Luna and Star, not just locals, but folks who had followed the story online. A couple from Oregon drove 10 hours just to sit by the fence and watch them graze. Emily wasn't sure what people were drawn to exactly. Maybe it was the fact that Luna had defied every expectation, or maybe it was the way she looked at her foal, full of absolute devotion. Whatever it was real. One quiet afternoon, Emily opened the paddock gate and sat on the ground with a sketchbook in her lap. She didn't try to approach, she just waited. Star noticed her first, trotting over with cautious curiosity. Emily smiled and let the foal sniff her boots. Her coat had lightened since birth, revealing a soft silvery gray, and that bold white blaze on her forehead gleamed in the light. "You're going to grow into something fierce," Emily whispered. Then soft hoof beats behind her. Emily turned slowly. Luna was standing just a few feet away, not staring, not flinching, just waiting. Emily lowered her gaze, took a slow breath, and placed the sketchbook down on the ground. Then she held out her hand, palm open, fingers still. Luna stepped forward, one slow step, then another, and then, without warning, she pressed her warm, soft muzzle into Emily's hand. The world seemed to stop. Emily blinked back tears. She didn't move. She didn't speak, because this wasn't just a touch, it was a thank you, a declaration, and maybe even a forgiveness. That night, Emily sat by the fire pit with Tanya, both wrapped in blankets, sipping warm cider. "She touched me today," Emily said, still stunned. Tanya smiled. "I saw. I didn't mean to interrupt. It wasn't about taming her," Emily whispered. "It never was. It was about letting her heal on her terms." They sat in silence for a while. The stars blinked overhead. In the distance, Luna and Star were just silhouetted in the moonlight, unafraid, untethered, and finally home. The next morning, Emily found something unexpected at the edge of the pasture. Just inside the tree line lay a pile of items: an old lead rope, a torn training halter, and a rusted branding iron. Someone had left them there. She looked around, uneasy, and then she saw the note pinned to a nearby fence post. "I used to break horses until I saw what she did. I'm done hurting them. She changed me. Thank you, DS." Emily stood there, heart pounding. Derek Sloan. He had come quietly, left what he needed to leave. And maybe he was learning, too. Later that day, Emily watched Luna and Star from the shade of an old oak. The air smelled like wildflowers and dust. Star ran circles in the grass, kicking and stumbling, while Luna watched calmly, head tilted, like she was remembering something, or maybe letting it go. Emily whispered to herself, "You're not broken, you're reborn." The first time, Emily took off her boots and walked barefoot through the pasture. The sun had just begun to rise. The ground was soft and damp with dew. Birds sang in the trees overhead, and the wind carried the faint scent of wild sage and warm hay. Star came first. She galloped across the field, all legs and confidence, her silvery coat shimmering in the light. She whinnied with excitement when she saw Emily, trotting right up to her with no hesitation. Emily laughed and scratched behind her ears. "You've got your mother's heart," she whispered. And that was when she felt it again, that presence. She turned slowly, and there stood Luna, poised, proud, and at peace. The golden mane that had once been tangled and dull now flowed freely over her neck. Her coat had filled out, glossy and silver like a desert moon. But it was her eyes that told the real story, deep, calm, and wide open. There was no fear in them anymore, only trust. 3 months had passed since the flood, since the rescue, since the letter that had granted Luna and Star permanent sanctuary. The world hadn't stopped watching. Emily's inbox was full: everyday letters, messages, drawings from children, even an invitation to speak at a national horse welfare conference. But she never let it go to her head, because the real work was still here in this field with them. Luna had become something more than a symbol. She was a teacher, and she was changing people just by being herself. Volunteers came from all over just to sit near her. A girl who hadn't spoken in months whispered her first words to Luna. A war veteran suffering from PTSD cried as he touched her muzzle. A former Mustang trainer broke down as he watched Star run, whispering, "I didn't know they could love like that." They could. They always could. They just needed to be given the chance. One morning, Emily brought a small group of children to visit the sanctuary. It was their first field trip since COVID-19 shut down their local school. They sat in the grass in a semicircle, each holding a notebook and crayons. Star pranced nearby, chasing butterflies while Luna grazed under a tall oak tree. "Can we pet her?" one boy asked. Emily smiled. "If she lets you." One brave girl, no older than 7, stood up and walked slowly toward Luna, hands behind her back. Luna lifted her head, sniffed the air, and remained still. The girl knelt, whispering something no one else could hear. Then Luna stepped forward and gently touched her forehead to the girls. The whole group gasped. The girl looked back at Emily, beaming. "I'm brave," she said. Emily's throat tightened. "Yes," she said softly. "She's good at seeing that." Later that evening, Emily sat in the barn office, writing in her journal. She changed everything, not just Star, not just me, but the way people see wild horses. She made them feel again, and she did it without ever saying a word. She flipped back through old photos. The day she found Luna at the auction, the night Star was born, the image of Luna standing in the floodwaters like a shield. Each one felt like a chapter of its own. But the story wasn't over, not really, because Luna's legacy was growing, running, and discovering the world for herself every day. Her name was Star. 6 months later, a local journalist came to the sanctuary for a follow-up story. She interviewed Emily near the paddock, where Star was now almost fully grown, tall, strong, and always just a few strides behind her mother. "What do you want people to remember most?" the reporter asked about Luna. Emily didn't hesitate. That she was never broken, she said. She was misunderstood and mishandled, and still, she chose to trust again. That kind of strength doesn't disappear, it multiplies. The reporter smiled. "What would you say to the people who said she was too dangerous to save?" Emily looked toward the pasture, where Luna stood beneath the setting sun, head high, her daughter galloping beside her. "I'd say thank you," she replied, "because they gave her something to prove, and she proved something bigger than all of U.S." As twilight painted the ranch in gold and lavender, Emily leaned on the fence and whispered one last thing. "You were never just a rescue, Luna. You were the one who rescued all of us." And in that moment, the wind picked up gently. Luna lifted her head toward the sky as if she heard it, as if she knew. If this story touched her heart, let it live beyond the screen, because every horse, wild or not, deserves the chance to be seen, heard, and loved.